Okay, let's jump in. We're about to do a deep dive on a subject that is so common, so everyday, that I think we've all stopped seeing how complex it really is.
We have.
We're talking about the apple.
Right, but we're not talking about just a piece of fruit here. We're talking about, I mean, it's basically a historical document.
A historical document.
Yeah. The apple is maybe the one fruit that has, disguised itself most successfully in our entire culinary record.
Mm. Our sources for this, they're a mix of botanical research, really precise culinary guides, and historical texts. They treat it as both a botanical universe and a symbol of civilization.
That's a perfect way to frame this. That's our mission today. We've got all this incredible source material, and we're going to synthesize it all to give you a shortcut, really, to the hidden science and the history behind something we all think we know.
And to get there, you really have to shift your perspective a bit. Just forget sweet and sour for a minute. The whole complexity of the apple, I mean, why it does what it does when you cook it, it all comes down to chemistry.
Specifically, this critical balance of three things: starch, acid, and pectin. That chemical trio, it's the key to everything we're about to talk about.
If chemistry is the key, then let's start with just the sheer scale of the apple's genetics. I mean, think about your last trip to the grocery store. You probably saw, what, 8, maybe 10 types?
If you're lucky.
Right. So if you had to guess, how many apple varieties do you think actually exist out there in the world, according to the botanical registries?
The number is it's mind-boggling. When you dig into the official agricultural data, the number is somewhere between 7,500 and, well, over 8,000 recorded varieties.
8,000. That's incredible. That's like an entire library of biodiversity in just one fruit.
It is. And this is where the commercial reality really sort of bites.
Right.
Because our sources point out that while 8,000 exist, only about maybe 100 to 150 of them are actually widespread commercially today.
So we're only seeing this tiny, tiny fraction of what's possible.
Exactly. Just a sliver of its genetic potential.
So with all this staggering diversity, where did this botanical universe even start? Where do the sources trace it all back to?
All of that genetic depth,
Yeah.
it comes from a single ancestor, a wild apple called Malus sieversii.
Malus sieversii.
And its origin is firmly established in Central Asia, specifically the mountains of Kazakhstan.
So the apple isn't native to Europe or America then. How did it become so dominant everywhere?
Well, it was a traveler, almost right from the start. It basically followed trade. It moved west from Central Asia along the famous Silk Road.
Of course.
And eventually got to Europe. The Romans were huge fans. They cultivated it a lot. And then, centuries later, colonists packed it up and brought it to America.
So the apple is essentially a record keeper. It's mapping human migration. It's mapping commerce.
That's a great way to put it. The sources really highlight it as this piece of living, documented agricultural history. It chronicles our movements.
And understanding that origin really helps you appreciate the invisible diversity it represents.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. So let's move from the orchard. Let's go into the kitchen. If botany gives us 8,000 choices, a chef has to narrow that down, and they do it based on that triad you mentioned: starch, acid, and pectin.
Right. This is what you could call the chef's calculus. And this is crucial because you just can't cheat the chemistry here. Pectin is what gives an apple its structure. Acid is what balances its flavor.
So if you pick the wrong one,
If you pick an apple with low pectin, its starch breaks down too fast under heat, and you just end up with a sad, watery puree.
so how do chefs categorize them? How do they break it down?
They basically split them into 3 groups, all defined by how those components react to heat. The first group is the most demanding, the cooking apples.
These are the ones built to last, built for endurance. What's different about them?
They have very high acid levels, and their cell walls, which are stabilized by that pectin, are super heat resistant. So they give you that structural tang in a cooked dish without just collapsing.
And what are some classic examples? The sources all point to champions like the high-acid Granny Smith, the British legend Bramley, and a great heritage variety called Northern Spy. These apples, they just hold their shape.
Okay, so contrast that with the second group, sweet and baking apples. I'm guessing these aren't about holding a firm shape.
Not at all. With these, it's about melting slightly, infusing a pastry with this rich flavor and aroma. We're talking about apples like Golden Delicious, Fuji, or Jonah Gold.
More sugar, a little less aggressive on the acid.
Exactly. This group is all about aroma retention.
And speaking of aroma, the source material had a really fantastic technical tip for this group. What's the secret to locking in that flavor?
This is a great little chef's insight. When you're baking with these specific apples, You should do it with the skin on.
The skin on, we usually throw that away.
I know. But the skin is a vital aroma reservoir, keeping it on traps all those volatile flavor compounds inside the pastry. It's a game changer.
That really is. Okay, so that brings us to the third group, which is what most of us eat every day. The raw and salad apples.
Right, and here texture is everything. For these modern varieties like Gala, Honeycrisp, Pink Lady, it's all about that cell structure, that famous snap.
That crispness.
Exactly. They're bred for that immediate satisfaction.
But since you're using them fresh, you have to deal with browning, oxidation. Most people just reach for lemon juice. Did the sources have a better idea?
They did. Lemon juice works, but it can be overpowering. The sources recommend using a light apple vinegar instead.
Ah, that's smart.
It gives you the acidity you need to slow down the browning, but the flavor profile actually complements the fruit instead of clashing with it, a much more refined approach.
So if we pull all that together, the big lesson is, well, cooking is chemistry. And the chef's golden rule is that acid comes before sugar. Function dictates your choice.
And that functional versatility is precisely why the apple earned what you could call its cultural passport, why it traveled the globe and became the star of so many different national dishes.
Let's get into that. How did this knowledge translate into some of those global icons? Let's start with the big one, apple pie.
We think of it as, quintessentially American. But the source materials are clear. Its roots are in medieval England.
And it wasn't even sweet back then, was it?
Not at all. It was savory, often had meat in it. It only became the sweet dish we know, with lots of sugar, cinnamon, when it got to the New World.
And what's the one tip the sources give to solve that age-old problem of the soggy bottom crust?
Moisture is the enemy. The trick is to draw out some of that liquid before it ever hits the pastry. So you lightly saute or pre-cook the apple slices before you build the pie. It makes a huge difference.
Okay, let's go to France. The tarte tatin, that beautiful upside-down caramelized tart. I love the legend about the Tatin sisters and their happy accident.
Right, the Hotel Tatin legend.
Yeah.
But whether it was an accident or not, the execution is very technical. And the main insight from the chefs is all structural. You have to arrange the apple slices very, very tightly in the pan.
Why so tight?
Because the whole thing relies on those apples locking together. If you leave gaps, the structure just collapses when you flip it. You get a sunk tart. You need that density to support the pastry.
That makes sense. And finally, let's go to Austria for Apfelstrudel. The sources trace its lineage back to the Ottoman Balkan region, which is fascinating.
It is. And the key to a good strudel is managing moisture. The pastry is so delicate. And the crucial insight for the filling is simple. Slice the apples thinly, never ever grate them.
Why not grate? It seems faster.
It's a disaster. Grating just releases a flood of water, and that moisture will instantly turn that beautiful, delicate pastry into a gummy mess.
Okay, so beyond desserts, the apple plays this huge role in savory food too, usually as a balance, right, to cut through richness.
100%. You see it in German cooking with rich pork, classic English applesauce with goose, even in Scandinavian fish marinades.
So the rule here is what? Go for the most aesthetic apple you can find.
That's the one. The savory insight is always choose the most sour apples you can get your hands on. That sharp acidity is what you need to balance out heavy fatty meats or fish.
And we can't forget just simple applesauce with puree, a staple for baby food, sauces.
And the insight there is just patience. Use low heat and let the apple's own natural fructose do the sweetening. Don't add sugar. You just don't need it.
So to put all this global presence into context, we really have to anchor the apple back in history. It wasn't just food. It was a cornerstone of civilization.
It absolutely was. The sources connected to our earliest stories, like the golden apple of Eris that supposedly started the Trojan War. On a more practical level, the Romans were meticulous record keepers. They cataloged apple orchards in texts like Pliny the Elder's Naturalis Historia.
And then in the medieval era, where was that knowledge preserved?
It was kept alive in monastery gardens. Monks preserved the art of grafting, of cultivation, and this is also when things like apple cider vinegar moved out of the kitchen and into, well, medicine, for cleaning wounds, for digestion, all sorts of things.
And for the early colonists in America, planting an orchard was a pretty big statement, wasn't it?
It was a huge statement. It became this crucial indicator of civilization. Planting an orchard meant you were there to stay. It showed commitment, permanence. It was often a requirement for formal land ownership.
Wow. We started with just a simple fruit, and we've unpacked it as a global traveler, a chemistry lab, and a living historical document. It's been with us every step of the way.
And that's the final insight to take away from this. The apple is exceptional because it's been essential in every possible way. Sweet, savory, drink, vinegar, medicine. It isn't just a versatile fruit. It is fundamentally humanity's agricultural memory. Every single variety tells a story of trade, of travel, of human ingenuity.
And don't forget that simple tip. The peel is an aroma reservoir. But if apples truly are our agricultural memory, what history are we sacrificing? What stories are we losing when we let only 150 varieties dominate our entire global diet, choosing efficiency over all that incredible diversity? Something for you to think about the next time you hold an apple in your hand.